Hello, everyone. We're continuing what we began yesterday. And this is a speech given by Lubavitcher Rebbe. It happens to be, and he gave it in 1959. And it's written in Likuti Sichot, a collection of the Rebbe's speeches. There's 43 books. And the Rebbe uniquely takes ideas which are in the weekly Torah reading, and he explains them as messages directly to us from the creator of the universe to increase our individuality and power and courage to improve the world in the way that God wants. So here we have the big example. Here the Rebbe is giving a real amazing example, and that is the name of this week's Torah reading is called Shemot. And in fact, it's the name of the whole book. In English, it's called Exodus because it deals with the exodus of the Jews from Egypt. But the fact is that the name of the book is called Shemot. That's the name of it. Names. I don't think it's really called Exodus in any of the Jewish writings or authors. I think it's just totally a non-Jewish title that's been given to it. But okay, but at least it's talking about, Exodus going out of Egypt. But the real name of this week's Torah portion, this week's Torah reading, and in fact of this whole second book of the Bible is called Names, Shemot. So the Rebbe said there must be something very, very special about names that describes the Jewish people, and it's relevant to the whole idea of the purpose of the Jewish people in the world. Because after all, what is it talking about, this whole book? How the Jewish people were in Egypt, and how they made an exit. They left Egypt. Which, like we said so many times before, at first glance, it was totally unnecessary. Just leave the Jewish people in Israel. That's where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were. And that's it. And they're just, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, they receive the Bible, they give it to the Jews in the Holy Land, and that's where they stay. What do they have to leave and come back, leave again? They got evicted, first destruction, second destruction, leaving, coming back into Israel. So the Rebbe is saying, let's not make the mistake and think that the whole idea of exile, the Jewish people are exiles because they're not in Israel. And when they are in Israel, that's called redemption. That's definitely not true. I mean, certainly being in Israel is one of the signs of the redemption. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about that. But and also the fact is that all the Jews will not be in Israel until Moshiach brings them there. There's no way it's going to happen. Not only will the Jews not be all in Israel, even the Israelis won't be in Israel. All the Israelis that left Israel, they won't come back until Mashiach brings them back. So there is, of course, one of the signs of the Mashiach is going to bring everybody back to Israel. But the main thing of exile is not the physical fact that we're not in Israel or the physical fact that we're scattered around. But it's something much deeper than that. It's that we're not doing our job. We're not aware of our identity. And this idea of the Jewish identity is connected intrinsically, deeply, infinitely. It's wound one with the whole idea of names. This idea of names in some way is the essence of the Jewish people. The names of the Jews, the fact that they have names and that they're called names, and when they went into Egypt, they were called names. When they came out, it was by their names. This thing of a name. So what is the thing of a name? So we're going to talk about this. Let's go. So first of all, the Rebbe brought two midrashim. One says that the Jewish people, the thing of the names is important because the Jewish people, when they came into Egypt, they had these names that they were given: Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar. And when they came out, they didn't change their names. Avalpi that they were, even though that they were in Egypt for 210 years, but the Jewish people did not change their names. That's pretty notable. It's pretty notable. Usually if you're a prisoner somewhere, you try to do everything you can to ingratiate yourself with your captors. And so then the Jewish people, they didn't give in. Another meaning is that the Jewish people are called names, just like the stars all have names. That God called all the Jews by their names to show that the Jewish people are important. So the Rebbe said, really, both of these things sort of go together. That the Jewish people are called names by God. That's what gave them the power not to change their names. Okay, maybe I'll sort of wreck this thing up. I'll reveal the end a little bit now. The name of a person, for instance, it shows and touches on the essence of the person. When a person is like faints, you call his name, he wakes up. Call somebody else's name, he doesn't wake up. On the other hand, the name of a person is definitely not that person. There could be 1,000 people called by the name Yehuda or Ruvain or Shimon. So on one hand, the name of a person touches on the person's essence. On the other hand, the name of a person is certainly not that person. It's something very external to the person. And so we're going to see that this is, in fact, the essence of the Jewish people, is to take the most external things in the world and attach them to the essence of God. Okay, let's go on. Here we go. And this all began when the Jewish people, of course, went into Egypt. That's when they began the whole saga of the Jewish nation and the Jewish purpose and the Jews changing all humanity and all reality and all the... Okay. There's also another thing we can say is like this in the pasuk in the sentence. We already brought these two midrashim, right? The Jews didn't change their names, and the other was the Jews are important. They're like the stars, they have names. Here's something else. Elishmot. It says there's another midrash, and it says like this: Tzadikim domim laboram. And tzadikim are similar to God, to the Creator. Their midrash, the midrash says that Rishoyim, evil people, like Goliath, and Novel was in the time of King David, and they were bad people. Also, it says Haman, Goliath Shemo, Novel Shemo, etc. It says the name of the person before it says the word name. By the Rishoyim Zayin, this is just in Yiddish saying the same thing. So it says Haman Shemo, Goliath Shemo, Novel Shemo. I don't know if it says that actually by Haman, but anyway, by these people it does. Darmont, Far, their name is before this word, their individual name is before the word name. But the tzaddikim, Shemon, the word name comes before their actual name. Ushmo Kish, his name was Kish, his name was Shaul, his name was Ishai. Domin Labor, that's similar to God. Like by God, it says Ushmi. When God said, my name, he said to Moses. This is the next week's Torah portion. Shmi Hashem, my name, Yud Kevavke, my name, Lon Nadatel. So the word shame comes before God's actual individual name. But by the tzaddikim, the word shame comes before name. Enlech, this is similar to God. Und das is Oyech Marumas. This is also hinted at the sentence where it says, Elu Shmot, these are the names of the Jewish people. So first of all, it says the word name. When Shpeter, it says afterwards, Ruvain, Shimon, etc. Okay, what's the importance of this word shame, name, Shmot? When Oich the Remes, the hint is also at the connection between Zwei oiben geretten Perushim, these two previously mentioned meanings of the Midrash, that we said that the Jewish people are, the second one says the Jewish people are like the stars. And the first Midrash said that the Jewish people did not change their names. Where does this come from? Kumter is Darfun. This comes from the fact, was which Bnei Yisrael, the Jewish people, are tzaddikim, they are similar to God. Right? So that the Jewish people are similar to God because name, the word shame, comes first. This means the Jewish people have some sort of a special holy purpose in their world. And that special holy purpose in the world gives them the power, number one, not to change their names, and the fact that each one of them is important, like the stars. As is Mavor, it's explained. So now we see this idea, whole idea of a name suddenly assumes this tremendous importance. It's not just a convenience. At least when the Jewish people are concerned, it's not just a convenience, and also by God. It's the names of God somehow or other are very, very essential to God, just like the names of the Jews are very essential to the Jews. We'll see. As Mavur, it's explained in a lot of places in Chassidut, as the light of God, this aspect of what which comes down into enlivening and creating the world, is nor the bechinas from shame. It's only God's name from God. Right? Somebody asked me a good question. By the way, I appreciate questions. If people ask me questions, I mean, if they're normal questions, some people just sort of use to just ramble on, which is okay. I mean, if you want to ramble on, maybe that also helps you also. But I can't participate in your ramblings. But if a person wants to ask a good question, I really appreciate it. So Penny asked a good question, is that how can you say that God creates the world? Because if he creates the world, that means he's somehow or other divided. How does he do it, creating the world? So that question really is in some way the whole motivation for idolatry. That there's God, and then God has helpers or aspects or something of God that they're also, you can worship. You can worship. So there's God, and then there's the ghost of God, and then there's this of God, and there's that statue of God. I was in Thailand. I read a book. They put it in every. We were in a hotel. So just like in American hotels, these people took on themselves to put a Gideon Bible that has also the Gospels in it. So they also have a book of Buddhism, which they have. I learned a little bit of Buddhism. I'm not a big expert in any of this stuff. But anyway, I mean, it was basically the same thing. They say that there's the essence of God, and then there is of the essence of Buddha, whatever, of God, and then there is the person of Buddha, and then there are all these statues that you have. And the statues, they just embody the person, and the person, he embodies God. So it's like, the Father and the Son, and so all these things are very logical. I mean, there certainly is a good point. I mean, God creates the world, okay, but I mean, can't do it himself. Because if he does, then that sort of divides him up. So the Rebbe is saying, good question, but the fact is, it's not so. There is God, and then there's the name of God. And just like the name of a person is not separate from the person, I mean, it's his name, but it's that person. Although it's true, in a person, you can change the name. But if we have an essential name, right, then you can't change it. Like you call a person Lefty or Red or whatever it is, whatever names you call them, right? So that if it shows on that person's nature, professor or something, doctor, so it shows on the person's essence. So I mean, in a way, you can say, well, is Joe, is he really a doctor, or that Joe? There's the essence of Joe, and then there's the doctor of Joe. So it's really not Joe is not the doctor. It's only just his external. That's not so. If Joe is a doctor, he's a doctor, but it just happens to be the external aspects of Joe as a doctor. Same thing like God. God creating the world, it's God himself creates the world, but he creates the world by some external aspects of him, and that's what's called God's name. That's the name of God. It's not separate from God. It's God's name. I'm explaining this in a way that as though I really understand it. I don't understand it. I mean, the fact that God creates the world is totally incomprehensible, but I'm just telling you an explanation. Because the name of God is also infinite, just like the aspects of God. So the 10 sefirot, they're incomprehensible. Just like it says, man is created in God's image. So God has an image. What's God's image? The 10 sefirot. But the 10 sefirot of God are also infinite. They're incomprehensible. So in a way, it sort of answers the question, but in another way, it doesn't, because we can't take God out of his incomprehensibility. He creates us. God is creating all these spiritual worlds that we also don't understand the spiritual worlds. And there's his creations. So God, of course, is incomprehensible. But don't think that limits him to being above the world. There are certain aspects of God that certainly can be comprehensible and must be comprehensible, because there's a commandment to love God. You can't love God if you don't understand anything about it. Love is an intimate thing. So this is the aspect of God's name. The name of God, that's what is used in creating and enlivening the world. Was is blois, this is only heora. It's just like a ray of godliness, an upshine from him. Vi der Maimer, like it says, Melech Shemoni Kra Aleim, like the king, his name is called on them. I don't know, maybe I can give you an example. I don't know if it's a good example. I'll give the example. Let's say, grandpa comes into the house and you really love your grandfather. He comes and says, Grandpa, huh? He said, no, that's what I look like. That's not grandpa. What do you mean? What does that mean? So that's just your appearance, right? I mean, if you were blind and I came in, you wouldn't know it was me. So obviously that's not the real me. That's just your perception of me. So what is your real grandpa? That is my essence. I mean, that's ridiculous. That makes no sense. Obviously, the child sees grandpa. That's grandpa, right? But on the other hand, it's not really grandpa. He has a point. There is an essence beyond. I mean, let's say he changed his face. He got older, doesn't look like the same person. It still is grandpa. Okay, good. So it says the ray of godliness that creates and enlivens the world, this is God. But on the other hand, it's only a ray. This is only the name of the king, like a king. The name of the king this is what controls the kingdom. The king doesn't come out himself. He puts documents and signs his name. Voshem, which a name is an inyan versus nit nogea zum etzem. It's not really, the name is not really the essence of the person. Vos vert mitim grufen, which is called, nor is to leave. It's for, and it's fater. It's only for something else. A name is for something, so to speak, outside of you. This can verbunden mit him, and by means of this, you can be connected to that person, right? You call it, the child calls out, "Oh, grandpa!" Right? By that name, he connects himself. But by God himself is Kodesh Muvdal. He's totally separate from the world. And we cannot possibly grasp or connect in any way to the essence of God, because he's above. So if so, we have two total opposites. Mitzad dem verbund, because of the connection of the souls of the Jews with the essence of God. The Jewish people are a portion of God from above. Sentence in the Bible. Excuse me. The Jewish people are a portion of God. That's what it means that Jews are God's sons, the sons of God. So therefore, the Jewish people, because they are a part of God, they are sons of God, almost all the worlds, they have no connection to any of the worlds. The Jews are connected to the Creator, not to the creation. All the creations cannot have any effect. Kain bagrif, no, how do you say, connection to the Jewish people. The Jewish people, but here we are in the world. We have bodies, we have souls. This is only a ray of godliness. This is just the name. Vigazucht, like we said before, tzaddikim. This is like tzaddikim, that they are dermid. Allah Yidden means all the Jews, and all the Jews are called tzaddikim. They are similar to the Creator. Why? Why? Un azoi, because the name comes first. The Jews realize that all that's enlivening them is just the name of God, not God's essence. That's what keeps them in the world. When a zoivi nachahora, just like a ray of godliness, is connected to the world, the same thing is also what's in the body of every single Jew and the soul of every Jew. It's just a ray of godliness. Well, they're goofed because the body is nitkain, is not a kli. It is not a vessel, at least now until the raising of the dead. It's not a vessel Orion Sunemen to hold the essence of the soul, to be a vessel for the soul. When das is the remes, that's what it says. Elu Shmot ben Israel. That's what it means. These are the names of the Jews that went into Egypt. Nor the shame was only the names of the Jews, array of the souls of the Jews. They came into Egypt. Und begrenetsten from Olam, and they came into Egypt and then to the limits of this world. Bechalal and from Golus, and especially in the exile, Egypt is exile. But the essence of the soul never went into exile whatsoever. Only the names of the Jews, the external part of the Jews, but the Jewish identity can never be affected by the world. and because as oiften the shama on the soul itself is nitkain shekel, it's not relevant that it can be in exile, because only the name of the Jew went into exile. Is get the oicha koch. This gives a power to the ray of the soul. So the essence of the soul is always above. That gives power into the essence of the soul. As Ezel Haben, the Starka can have the power, nitnis pal, not to be affected. So Verin from the Halamos Vestorim, on Bleben can be whole all the time. The nidricher, the nid, when the nidrik erupt, the mata when it comes down below in exile. Okay, so what is the Rebbe saying? What's the Rebbe saying? What's the point he wants to make over here? It's almost like a spy. Huh? The Jews are sort of like spies in the world. But it's not like, let's say, a spy from America goes into Russia because Russia's his big enemy. And he wants to take over, right? But on the other hand, America is the enemy of Russia. So we have one enemy taking over the other. Here we're saying the Jews are spies, but they're spies from God. And the world only apparently is the enemy of God. But in fact, it's not. The Jewish people come into the world, and the world tries to be the enemy of God, of the Jewish people, of everybody, draws everybody down, makes people think the world is meaningless. People become selfish, people become normal, confused. But the Jewish people, they're spies, so to speak, of God. In other words, only the outside of the soul goes in. But the inside of the soul, its true, how do you say, loyalty of the Jewish soul is to the creator of the universe. And the creator of the universe wants good for everybody. That's where the whole analogy of the two enemy nations are. God is not the enemy of the world. God in no way is our enemy. The world is an enemy of God. The world says, if you listen to what God says, you won't have a good time, you won't be able to do what you want, you won't be an individual, you won't be able to express yourself, to this, right? It's too far away, God is too far away, you can't be close to him, it's impossible, it won't make any sense. All these things are the world, according to worldly the measures and terms, it's true, according to the world. But in fact, it's not so. In fact, it's a big lie. God created the world, and he creates the world every instant purposely as a challenge, purposely as a job. It's a job for us. Oh, somebody I just heard yesterday. Oh, they're very good. Rabbi Slavatitsky. I forgot this. Very good. I can't remember what it is. Something like MWG or something like that. My white gown. What does it mean, my white gown? A doctor in a hospital, people come in and they're sick and they're weird, or he's a psychiatrist. People come in. No, when he puts on his white gown, so he's a doctor. He's objective. He's objective. He can look at the person, and the person doesn't have an effect on him. The person can say, "You're ugly, you're stupid, you're this, you're that." He understands this is part of the problem of this person. The person has a problem, obviously, and it has to be dealt with somehow or other. And he's just a doctor. So it's the same thing when you're in the world and things get you angry, they get you confused, they get you this, is you have to remember you're just a doctor. You put on your white, I don't remember the first initials, but it was really good. My white gown or something like that. You have to put on the white gown. You have to be objective. You are here to make the world healthy, right? In other words, you're connected to God. That's your connection. You're connected to the Creator. And you're here just like a doctor has a job to be in a hospital. You're here in the world. God put you in the world to make the world healthy. Why he made the world sick in the first place, I don't know. Don't ask me. But that's the fact. That's what we have to deal with, right? That's what we have to deal with. It's like, you go into a basketball game, and the person would say, well, why do these other people oppose me? Why is this opposition? Why? I don't understand. Why if I drop the ball, everybody gets angry at me? Why does it have to be like that? Why can't I just be going? Because that's the sport. That makes things interesting. In any case, only the name of the Jews goes into exile. But the essence of the Jews does not. We're in the world to do our job, and the job is to improve the world and make the world into a godly place, a meaningful place, a holy place. And that's because only our names are here. And our name, the external of the soul, which is in the world, it realizes that the whole entire world is just the name of God. And we get power from the essence of our soul, just like a spy gets power from his loyalty to his home country, whatever. That's what keeps him motivated to do his job, despite all the obstacles and all of this. So that's what the Jewish people are here. Now the Rebbe is going to say something else, and we'll continue this tomorrow. Just like the essence of the soul gives power to the name of the soul that's in the body, also reverse. When the name of the soul, this part of the soul which is in the world, when it actually meets these challenges, it gives an elevation to the essence of the soul. So to speak, like we learned that when God's will is done, God gets happy, nachat ruach. And that we're going to talk about, God willing, tomorrow. Have a good day with Moshiach now, and hope to see you tomorrow morning at 8:15. Shalom, everyone. Thanks for coming.